Hey, good day, everybody. Dave Walker here, the co-founder and CEO of the B2SMB Institute, and we are about to embark on another session in our SmallBizAid event series. I am joined this morning by the founder of Silver Lining, Carissa Reiniger. How are you, Carissa?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. So, I don't know how many people. I know there's a lot of people who know you because you're very wired into a lot of the people in our community. But just give us a little history of you. Introduce yourself and give us a little history of Silver Lining.
Sure. Thank you. So I started Silver Lining in 2005. So we've been around for a
Wow.
while. Yeah, I was 12. No, I was not. I wish I was 12. So I started it a while ago, and our mission when we started was to help small businesses make more money doing what they loved. I was very young. I was very naive. I essentially had no idea what that meant. But I was really passionate about this idea that you should be able to start a business and actually have that turn into something that provided a good lifestyle for your family and job creation and communities. And so I really connected to sort of the passion and the plight of small business owners. And that's led us on this 15-year journey of trying to figure out, A, why is it so hard to grow a small business? And then B, how can we help make it easier? And as we say, what we say to small businesses is, there is no silver bullet to growing a small business, but there is a silver lining. And so what we've created over the years is our SLAP methodology, which is a silver lining action plan. And it takes a small business owner through a process of getting really clear about the fundamentals in their business. What do they do? Who they do it for? What scale do they want to do it on? A deep profile and understanding of who their customer is so they can be focused on finding them. A deep review of their financials to the point where they have a budget and sales goals, and then a 12-month action plan to go out into the world to connect with their customers, to make sales, to hit their goals. And so once they've built their plan with us, which takes about 3 hours in our software, the real work starts because for the next 12 months, we wrap all the pillars of behavior change science around each small business to help them not just build good plans, but actually hit their goals. So a really good analogy for our program is it's like Weight Watchers for small business, or it's like the 12-step program, or like a Fitbit for a small business. We're helping the business owner build a really detailed and clear growth plan for their business, really focus on profitability and sustainability. And then because a plan is useless unless you implement it, we are wrapping a huge amount of strategy, training, community, accountability, and support around them for the long term to help them ultimately optimize their behavior so they can hit their financial goals.
So, so the behavior psychology that you apply, do you think that really assists the small business in their ability to do that work of strategizing and planning and executing?
Yeah, in a massive way. In fact, we do a lot of work with banks, lenders, economic development agencies, franchises, helping them help their small businesses. A lot of those types of organizations use our infrastructure, our technology and our infrastructure. And the thing that we always say to them, and that we've seen literally thousands of times over in all these years, is that a lot of the small business resources that are out there in the world are good. It's not that they're bad, but they're incomplete if you look at them from a behavior change science point of view. So doing a webinar for small businesses, that's good, but it's incomplete. Doing a coaching or a mentoring program for small businesses, that's good, but it's incomplete. And so what we do as an industry of people supporting small business is we invest an incredible amount of time and money offering education, mentorship, training, all these different things to small businesses that we've been doing for centuries, quite frankly, forever. But the success rate of small business isn't changing. It's not actually moving the needle. So we are all creating a lot of outputs, right? We can all be proud of the number of small businesses attended our thing or did this or that, but we're not seeing outcomes. And what behavior change science says is if you want to create results, you need to have a comprehensive support structure around anyone, any human who wants to create results, for a sustained period of time. So I always say we're like the least sexy small business thing out there. We're not promising that if you come to our boot camp, you'll be a millionaire in 6 weeks, or if you just come to this training program, all of a sudden your business will grow. Like we are the wah-wah, like guys, this is gonna be hard, but you can do it. And it's gonna take time, but it's possible. And if you do the work, we'll be there with you. And all of our data proves that those things are true. Anyone can succeed. Anyone can hit their goals if They do the work. And I think we mislead businesses a lot. We try to get the quick win in for ourselves as B to SMB companies and for the small businesses, but we're not setting any of us up for success by doing that.
Yeah, that's a really terrific point. And I want to put a pin in the behavioral psychology aspects of this as we really talk about the new psychological impact on small business of the last 6 months,
Yes.
and how you really adjust to that. But where I pretty much always start with these interviews, because it is the elephant in all of our rooms, is the pandemic. Do you remember where you were when you first kind of it struck you? Oh, okay, this is serious. This is going to be a big crisis.
Yeah, so probably, I mean, it was probably a dripping of a couple of moments. But I'm originally Canadian. I live in New York City, but my partner and I come to Australia every year for a couple of months to see his family and to spend time on this side of the world. And so we flew to Australia. Everything was great, like February 15th or something around there. I was scheduled to fly back to New York April 23rd. And sort of the beginning of March, things started to percolate and people were talking and things were getting canceled. And I remember I looked at Mike and I was like, is this going to be a thing? And then about a week later, I was like, are we going to get back to New York? And then about a week later, I was like, all right, this is a thing. And it was sort of about kind of every week for about 3 weeks in March, we were kind of like, oh. And, we're still in Melbourne now, all these months later. And so it was sort of through that lens of, I was seeing obviously so many people around me where travel was affected, but it was sort of that personal realization of, oh, wait, like, we're in this country and we're not going to be able to get back to that country probably. And at first we were sort of thinking, well, maybe till May. And then by about May is when I think the real penny dropped. At first I wanted to believe that it was significant, but short term. Mm-hmm. And then in about May, I thought, oh no, this is significant and long-term. And that sort of continued to adjust my thinking around it.
So during this time, you're obviously in a lot of dialogue with your small business customers, because they're in the midst of whatever stage they're at in applying SLAP planning. What are they starting to say as this is evolving from February to March to April?
Yeah. So we spend, the majority of our team are on the front lines talking to small businesses every single day, all day long. Oftentimes our small businesses call us their business therapist. And we often equate, especially in the last couple of months, that it's almost like running like a small business emergency room. Every time you get on the phone, you're sort of hearing the next crisis. And so watching and listening, to our small businesses, I would say that the beginning was sort of just fierce determination, okay, we'll figure it out. Right. There was, I would say, a sigh of relief around federal funding. We've got customers all over the world, but, different funding programs from different governments, seem to sort of create a little bit of a breath of relief for those who could access it, but that's a whole different conversation. Mm-hmm. In sort of May, June, we saw people just being really tired in July and August. We were having very different conversations with our small businesses in July and August, where it was, kind of exhaustion, not really sure what was going to happen next, not really trusting governments and large brands as much as maybe they hoped they could, a little bit of disappointment. Mm-hmm. And now I would say that it's a combination of, there's a determination. Not one of our small businesses has gone out of business, which that's not credit to me. That's credit to them. Yeah, it's really cool. But lots of them have no money in their bank account. Lots of them are, not sure what the future looks like. So they're under incredible stress, but there's a determination that is starting to come through. I had a conversation with about 10 of them yesterday about something, and, they all sort of referenced in different ways just this, we're not going anywhere, and wouldn't it be better if more people were helping us? And wouldn't it be ideal if this was a little bit easier? But you know what? We're small business owners and we're sort of used to it being hard, and we're sort of used to people not helping us that much. And so we're going to figure it out together. And so there was a resolve that was coming through in that conversation in particular that I'm thinking of, but in general, where, I think people have released this idea that they need to figure out what it looks like, and they're just focused on staying alive, getting through, not going anywhere, which I think is exciting. But there's a little bit of sadness in that, because I think they've given up the idea that they're going to get a lot of support, and now they're just becoming sort of resolved in their own determination.
You obviously know a lot about behavioral psychology, and this is pulling the pin out of that earlier thing. So
Yeah.
what do you think are the psychological changes? I mean, you kind of referenced them as far as the kind of change in mood and change in tone. What were kind of the transitions that people were going through that you could kind of pull out your diagnostic and say, yep, that's pretty classic when confronted with a crisis. This is how people react. What were some of the things that you were just kind of seeing behaviorally that were changing along the way?
So it's really interesting. We've talked about this a couple of times, but in my own sort of personal circumstances, and definitely in our small businesses, I really saw two different categories, two different responses, let's say. Mm-hmm. There was one half, or probably a little bit less than half, but let's call it one group, who I was really impressed by, who sort of came to the table and said, this is going to be hard. And so I need to get more disciplined. I need to get more focused. I need more support. What should we do? I'll take this session and this session, and I'll show up to my calls. Like I need to figure this out. And so I'm going to use the resources I have around me, and I'm going to lean into it, and I'm going to get through this. There was another group, probably the other just slightly over half, that went into what I would call sort of panic mode, or overwhelm mode, right? Panic is really, it turns into overwhelm. And the overwhelm sounded like, and it sounds like this, this is what happens to all of us as humans, right? It sounds like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, I can't that. Oh, I missed this call. I did this. I missed that. Oh my God, like, I'm just too busy. And we always talk about when we're doing sort of evaluations of our businesses and we're looking at the data that we collect, we call it the stages of stuck. And so there's a version where you're sort of in flow, you're doing the right behavior, you're in the right mindset. And when you're in that mindset from a behavior change point of view, you're not a victim, you're in control of your circumstances, you take responsibility, you ask for help, you take advantage of external resources, and you keep going. When things are hard, you acknowledge that it's hard. It's not that you never have problems, but you're good at responding to problems and continuing your journey. When you're not in sort of the right mindset, when you're not sort of primed for accomplishing your goals, you get into these stages of stuck that we've created. The first stage of stuck is I'm too busy. It sounds like someone saying, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. The second stage of stuck is I'm overwhelmed, right? People are just feeling like they're just flooded. The third stage of stuck is I've lost my passion, right? It sort of sounds like, oh, I'm just not even passionate anymore, which is usually a sign of exhaustion. And the fourth stage of stuck is I want to quit. Something else would be better. And so it's interesting. We don't see a lot of people moving into I've lost my passion, I want to quit. But definitely for those who are sort of out of strong mindset and sort of out of the rhythm that we believe will lead them to success, it definitely sounds a lot like I'm too busy, I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot of that. And again, a lot of it is valid, but it's worth noting that the half of our customer base that is staying in the right mindset, staying determined, building plans, executing, evaluating, optimizing, going again, and the business owners who are sort of in stuck stages, 1 or 2, it's not that their circumstances are different, right? The circumstances are largely the same. In fact, there's probably better and worse on both sides. It's really about the mindset that they're coming at those problems from. And that's really what behavior change is about, is do you have enough external structure and support around you to keep your mindset in the right place so that you can overcome obstacles when they come up and not have it stop you in the pursuit of your goals, but to continue to have it strengthen you to get to your outcomes. So that's a long answer to your question. That's probably more than you wanted.
It's brilliant, because I think that what comes to mind immediately is in our audience of business to small business professionals, the marketers, product developers, salespeople, service people. Do you think it is important that they both be conscious and conscientious of those states that small business are in?
100%. Yeah. And I would even go so far as to say, sort of take responsibility for that, right? When we as B2SMB professionals, when we flood small businesses with marketing emails, with, promotions and offers, or when we're trying to get them to do something that we need or we want them to do, I think we have a responsibility to ask ourselves, like, is this actually valuable to them? You know, small business owners are always living in this fine line of sort of being functional and being stuck and overwhelmed. And one of the number one things they talk about when they talk to us about being overwhelmed is that they're constantly being marketed to and spammed and sold to, and they're always getting a phone call from some sales agent trying to sell them this and an email with this thing. And quite frankly, they feel taken advantage of. They don't feel like they're being spoken to as humans. They don't feel like people understand them and what they're going through. And so we try to be really conscious about that. You know, on their best days, small businesses are really intensely scheduled, right? On their best days, they have a lot of people coming at them asking for things, their families, their staff, their communities, the government, and all of us, right? And so I think the number one thing I would say is that we should all be operating with a sense of respect for these business owners. They're doing an incredible thing building these small businesses. You know, it's hard. And they, for the most part, they do it with a lot of generosity. They give a lot as they build their businesses. And I think we, as people who sell to them, do have a genuine responsibility to understand, not as a focus group and not as a set of data and not as a bunch of marketing jargon, but like, as humans, who are these people and what does it mean to show up for them in a way that creates a mutually beneficial relationship?
That's terrific. And listen, I think that you should really write about this. You should really instruct this, because I think that when I want to get to talking about the initiatives that you put in place, because many of them you're walking the talk of what you're saying. But I think as we brought SmallBizAid together, really one of the impetuses was we saw so many initiatives that large brands were doing that just fell flat in their genuine help to small business, because they were either frankly too salesy, or they were too self-serving, or they were just too tone deaf to what was going on out there. And it seemed to be that the ones that were successful were the ones that started from that place of respect, that place of frankly awareness that this is what they're going through, and you know, a bunch that are kind of highlighted in our event here are very much like that. That's the approach that they took, and it was very genuine.
Totally. And I think, you know, the feedback that we've always heard this from our businesses, but especially in the last 6 months, you know, if you're a big corporation and you're sitting on a fancy balance sheet, right? And you're then trying to market your special COVID offer, which is like 2 months with 10% off or something like that, you know, to a small business owner who has zero money in the bank, who is facing incredible financial pressure, who's feeling the pressure of trying to figure out how to pay their staff when they have no money, when their revenue's gone down 80 or 90%. And then you're in their inbox with your 10% off or 2 month special offer. It's not going well. That is not working. Better to do nothing for the next year and then go back to marketing in a year than to do that, honestly. It quite frankly is so disrespectful that it actually annoys me when I see companies doing it, because it's just, that is the last thing a business owner needs right now. We either need to leave them alone so they can actually get this figured out, or we need to help them, not sell to them, not market to them, help them.
It's such a great point. So let's talk about, you know, the evolution of how you came to help, not just in the customers within your own products and your own services, but some of the initiatives that you really put forward. Give me kind of the progression of the first 60 days, then into the next 60, and then now into what you're doing on a go forward basis.
Yeah, so the first thing we did in early March, kind of as I was looking at Mike and thinking like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get back to New York? We the penny started to drop about how big this was going to be, and really that one of the most affected groups was going to be small businesses, all of our customers, all of our revenue, all of our customers. And so we had a meeting as a team. And I proposed the idea that we would make our program pay what you can. So the regular cost of our program is $300 US a month. We've always had a pay what you can option for small businesses that come from underserved communities or economic realities where they just do not have $300 a month. We've always been committed to access. But before the pandemic, I mean, probably 15% of the small businesses in our subscription base took advantage of that. we decided that we were going to market it very loudly and make sure that our existing customers and any new customers that signed up knew they could take advantage of that. So fast forward to today, 97% of our customers have taken advantage of Pay What You Can in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And we have businesses paying anything as low as literally $1 a month, up to the full $300 a month. So we've seen our revenue go down 80% as a result of that move. The number of customers we serve has definitely gone up. And lots of people think that I'm a genius, and lots of people think that I'm a crazy person for doing this.
Right.
But I will forever look back on this decision as one of the best decisions I've made in my career. We want to show up for small businesses for real, and we're going to take a hit for a couple of years, and we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to other brands, especially large corporate brands, we're not venture backed. I built Silver Lining based on our revenue. We are a tech company. We built technology, but we did it all sort of through blood, sweat, and tears. We're not hugely resourced. So if we can do this, if we can make an investment this big, a call this big, anyone can. I mean, I believe that to the depths of my soul. So that was the first big move we made. Mm-hmm. And we're committed to sort of keeping that commitment to small businesses, I think, for at least another 12 months. I mean, I don't think that the plight of cash flow and small business is going away anytime soon. So we're in it. Yeah, that's a commitment we're making for as long as is necessary. The second decision that we made is that we run a program called the Impact 5X Economic Justice Project, where we specifically put together cohorts of typically underserved small businesses. Mm-hmm. And we give them access to our program. We tell their stories. We use the data that we collect to disprove and to really show that, talent is equal and opportunity is not. And we're trying to challenge discrimination and bias and all the things that get in the way of, a underprivileged small business succeeding. So when the pandemic hit, obviously our revenue went down, but we increased our investment in that program. So we made a commitment to go from an initial group of 50 small businesses up to 500. So we're Xing our commitment on that program. The third thing that we did is we run a global movement called Thank You Small Business. And we completely changed the strategy of it. We actually created, I have a little show and tell, we created Thank You Small Business merchandise in partnership with a company called Printify. And we've been running a campaign for just anyone in the world to buy their Thank You Small Business merchandise, to wear it, literally out there, literally wearing billboards, thanking small businesses. Yeah. And then we're taking 100% of the profits from all those sales and giving it away as cash gifts to small businesses. So that's the third thing we did. The fourth thing is that we
and that was I'm just sorry to interrupt, but that was an existing program, right? That Thank You Small Business has been out there for multiple years.
5 years, 7 years. Yeah. So Thank You Small Business was already existing. Wow. But we completely shifted how we were going to do it, and 100% of any money raised, whether it's from corporate sponsors or merch sales, we're giving back to small businesses. So our whole mandate of Thank You is now to profile small businesses, give them thank you prizes in the form of cash gifts, and to try to generate as much revenue as we can so that we can get as much of that money back into small businesses as possible. And also, the mission of Thank You was always to celebrate and support small businesses, to thank them for really doing a thankless job, which is building a small business. And I feel even more strongly now that that's so important. I mean, God, if for any of you who are not on the front lines talking to real small businesses every day, if small business is sort of a category and not a human group, I mean, go talk to 5 of them. And if you don't say thank you at the end of that conversation, like, thank you for staying alive, thank you for what you're doing for really no gain, to keep our communities going and our economies going. I mean, if you don't want to say thank you, then I don't think you've talked to enough small businesses in the last 6 months. So that message and that mission has become more important. And we're just trying to say thank you in the most literal way by giving them some money. Thank you, and here's the money. Yeah. The fourth thing is we created a website and a campaign that you've been a great collaborator on called Buy from Small Business, with this idea that the best way to thank a small business is to buy from them. And so we put up a website really quickly with ideas for how you could buy from small businesses, even in the midst of social distancing and shutdowns and all the things that we've all been going through. And through a series of conversations, we're planting that campaign inside of an amazing nonprofit called Civic Nation, who are experts in creating groundswells where they activate the American public to do essentially civic duty, to take their civic duty to make, you know, this a better country. And so the message of Buy from Small Business, as we continue to expand it, is really going to be challenging the general public. Okay, if we want this country to come back, if we want our economy to come back, then we, every individual one of us, have a civic duty to go buy from small businesses, to choose community over convenience, you know, to not go click on Amazon when it feels so easy, but to actually find a small business that sells that thing you need and get it from them. So Buy from Small Business is something that we sort of planted in March, literally right in response to COVID. But that seeds are growing and we're hoping to really blow up in the coming months. And then the last thing is that we're launching a small business lending fund based on behavioral data. So one of the things that's always been true is that access to capital for small business is difficult, right, especially if you're a minority business. And traditional capital is based on credit scores and cash flow and collateral. And most small businesses ruin their credit scores and don't have great cash flow and maybe don't have collateral to lend against. And so we are doing a pilot. We're starting with a small amount of money, but we're lending 100% against SLAP data. So we're not pulling financials. We're lending against behavior and character. And we hope to prove that that works with an initial $1 million fund. And then in 2021, expand that fund and make access to capital more available for more small businesses. So that's what we're up to.
Yeah, it's an incredible menu of stuff. That last one, just to drill a little in on that. So what do the financial underwriters, again, many of whom are represented in our membership, like the Lendias, the Fun Boxes, the Cabbages, who, you know, live and die on underwrite basically based on pure financial data. There's probably very little behavioral data, and there's certainly no behavioral data that I'm aware of that any bank has ever used to,
of course, not at all,
report, to really kind of establish that relationship. What's been their reaction? Have they been said, you know, we'll see you at the bottom of the cliff, or are they really kind of like, you know, maybe this could work?
Maybe both, and also like, can you call me in 6 months and tell me if this works? Like, it's like kind of like, can you let me know what happened? So all of the above. What I would say is that I have a lot that I could say on this. I'll try to be brief. Yes, we have a very entrenched model of how we assess risk, right? And the storyline is that small businesses are high risk. And so in order to mitigate our risk, we need to charge higher interest rates. You know, we need to do more robust, you know, compliance, and we need to do tougher underwriting to protect our risk. My philosophy in this pilot, which it's a pilot, you know, I could be proven wrong. So that's the point of the pilot. But our philosophy that we want to prove, and hopefully will, is that actually small businesses are a great risk. I mean, who else is as committed and resilient and tenacious and refuses to give up and is invested as a small business owner? I mean, if I'm going to give anyone any money, it's going to be a small business owner. I mean, I would trust that they're going to do right by it. The problem is that the system right now just doesn't work. You try to mitigate your risk by increasing interest rates. Small businesses that operate on small profit margins now have this debt that they're trying to service with interest rates that are so prohibitive that no one's winning. Oftentimes debt we see puts the business further behind as opposed to further ahead. The loan is harder on the business than had they not received it. So what we're trying to do is say, okay, if we can give this business owner an affordable loan and then not just give them the money, but they have SLAP, right? They've got this intense support structure around them. They've got a monthly strategy call. They've got weekly mindset calls. They've got unlimited support. We're tracking tons of behavioral data points, and it's alerting us when someone is doing great or someone's off track. Yeah. You know, if our intention is to give them money and to protect our risk, not by jacking interest rates, but by actually making sure that we're helping this small business succeed, well then, in theory, you help more small businesses succeed, you keep the interest rate lower, and you also get the money back to your investors. So that's the theory. You know, a lot of banks and lenders do lending, and then they do what they call technical assistance, sort of as a side thing, right? Oh, well, we should help the small business too. And they do webinars and workshops, and here's how you read a P&L and all these things. Ours is the opposite approach. We've spent 15 years building this very robust small business support program, and we're now going to do lending against that support structure. And so it's sort of an opposite approach. I would say that people, again, kind of like is always true when people think about me. I feel like this is the standard Carissa Reiniger reaction. Half are like, oh, wow, that's genius. Like, that's really pioneering. Like, yes, of course that makes sense. And half are like, you're a crazy person and this is never going to work. So we'll find out.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And you have to come back and tell us how it's going along.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
And I'm just interested, do you believe that this approach, which really is intended for financial underwriting, has application for B to SMB marketers who frankly are looking for means of qualifying small business customers better? I mean, I think that you know, we've kind of turned marketing into underwriting, where we're really saying, hey, if you're not this size, if you're not this much money, if you don't have this number of years in business, you're not in this zip code, you know, you're probably not going to buy a Dell stack of servers. So we're just not even going to talk to you whatsoever. And I'm sure that you know, like anything, it's just like any targeting methodology, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see, how much are you missing in the form of real, genuine opportunity by neglecting those small businesses that are really demonstrating growth potential through character, not growth potential through number of employees.
I love that. Yes.
I just would love to figure out how do you pilot that? How do you really basically say, you know, I can take this methodology and really, and this base, and really teach myself a different way of targeting. Because I think you know this too. I mean, probably the most frequent conversation that I have with CMOs from B to SMB brands is around targeting, is around what defines a small business, what defines a prospect, what defines somebody who's a good fit for my product or service. And we use a lot of really imperfect parameters to establish that. And a lot of proxies that if you really pushed us, we'd say, that has nothing to do. Number of employees has nothing to do with either willingness or ability to buy something.
Totally. No, it's such an interesting idea. We should definitely talk about that more, because two of the things that it makes me think about is one, you know, these metrics that we've been using in the small business industry for so long are quite frankly so stale, right? They're so out of date. You know, even looking at something like revenue as a metric of success. I mean, we say this to our small business all the time. We would rather you have $200,000 in revenue and $50,000 of profit than $1.5 million in revenue and 1.6 million in expenses. Like, why are we talking about revenue all the time? Why aren't we talking about profitability and sustainability? Can this business grow, and can they protect their profit margin as they grow, right? So this focus that all of us do, it's industry-wide and it's flawed, that revenue matters, that's flawed. Same with employee count. You know, maybe having tons of employees is a sign that you're not operating very well, right? Or a sign that you've got such high expenses that you don't have cash flow for anything else. I've met some of the savviest business owners who have very few employees, but use contractors and freelancers. You know, we personally try to hire small businesses as much as we can with our money, as opposed to always hiring staff. So yeah, we definitely need new metrics of success. I think that that's true at sort of like a human level, but it's definitely true in terms of how we think about small business. And I'll just say that, you know, if you looked at our database, which we do all the time, you know, and you look at it from a, you know, what we would assume to be true, right? The sort of larger size businesses with the charismatic leaders, with the, you know, maybe the white skin, the male leadership living in New York City, that those people would be so much more successful than, you know, the opposite of all those things. Our data does not support that. Our data supports that the people with the least amount of ego, the people who are focused and disciplined, the people who are sort of determined and actually even a little bit structured, all of the things that are not the sexy entrepreneurs, raise millions, sell for billions, all of the hype that we've all bought into, that success is because you're fast growth and you're scaling and you're this and you're that. Our data just does not support that those are the people that are worth, being in business with. You might get a big win, you might get some big wins, but there's a lot of small wins that add up to a lot of success.
That's fascinating. So I want to kind of transition into really, again, the most recent conversations with small business that are, fashioning their own recovery, basically inventing their own rebound, as it were. What are you hearing from them? What are you hearing as far as what are they looking for? What kind of help do they need right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. They're really looking for camaraderie with fellow small businesses. I think that they are feeling, by and large, burnt by government and big business. And so they're turning to each other. And so a lot of the conversations that we are having with our businesses is them wanting more connection with each other. That's sort of the primary thing that they're asking for: experience sharing, trying to even buy from each other. So we're thinking a lot about how we facilitate that amongst them. We're getting them all together in different ways. I'd say that's the number one thing that I'm hearing. The second, which is obvious, they need money. And ideally that comes as revenue. They're obviously looking at grant programs and debt. But I would say that by and large, there is disappointment in sort of those opportunities. There is definitely our entrepreneurs who are women and people of color do feel like they had less access to those opportunities than other people. There's definitely a lot of, I don't want to say it's jadedness, but I would just say it's sort of like people are sort of resigned to that didn't really go the way that we wished it would have. So, revenue. If you're listening to this and you can take all of your marketing budget and instead of buying ads, go buy from small businesses, like literally we need to drive revenue to small businesses. That is what they need. They're looking for sales. That's their number one. And I think it's worth saying, I'm sure we all know this, but I don't know a small business owner in the world, literally, who says, oh, if I could just get another big grant, then I wouldn't have to worry about making sales for a couple months. Like that is not the character of a business owner. They want to do their business. They want to sell. They want to deliver. They want to run a company. They want to do their business. And so anything and everything that helps them generate sales is definitely key, crucial. And then of course, this is not a surprise, but anything and everything related to sort of online marketing, all of a sudden everyone has to be, digital. And most businesses, as we know, are not very tech savvy. So there's a lot of struggle happening just with the basics of, how do you create a great website? Should I have a social media account? We're talking a lot with small businesses about sort of what it means to, be more digital. So I would say those are the three things that we're hearing the most.
I think, important that you point out that small business, even in recovery, are not looking for a handout. They're not looking for just, there was a great quote from one of the interviews that Barry Maltz did for part of his reinvention series, a quote from a small business who said basically, look, if you throw me a lifeline, I'm still going to keep swimming. And I thought that was like,
I love
so
that.
well said.
That's great.
That's such a great attitude. It's basically, I'm not just simply going to take the $50,000 PPP or the 30,000 local grant or whatever the lifeline is, so it can just keep my employees paid or my doors open. I'm not going to just sit there and do nothing. I'm not just going to take the money and get to the other side of 60 days when it runs out. It just gives me enough opportunity to swim back to the boat and, and really be safe again. So
totally. And I would just add one small thing, which brings us back to thank you, small business. I think that most small businesses would take that lifeline. They keep swimming and they'd go pick up a couple other people on the way, to get onto that lifeline as well. I just think one of the most beautiful things that we see over and over and over again is that, you could talk to a small business owner who's got $3 in their bank account and who doesn't know where their next sale is coming from. And that small business owner is the person at the coffee shop giving them $2 for a coffee to try to help them stay in business. I mean, the generosity of this group of people who are being hit the hardest is very humbling. It should make all of us just step back and really ask for real, like, what are we doing to help these people get through this pandemic? Because what they're doing to help each other is it's incredible. It far surmounts what most people with many more resources are doing.
So as we kind of define the three things that you would recommend to our audience, all businesses, small business brands, the things that they can do right now, what I heard was connecting your community of small business customers to each other. Yep. is critical. What are another couple of things that you think that brands can do right now to really help their small business customers?
Stop marketing and selling and help them. If you've got a marketing budget, think about how you distribute it differently. Don't buy ads right now. Spend money with small businesses. If you've got a budget for 2021 for vendors and suppliers, make sure all your vendors and suppliers are small businesses. Like, put your money where your mouth is. Don't buy an ad that says you care about small business. Take your money, buy from them, and help them. That will A, actually make a difference, and B, if you're if you're trying to build a brand, loyalty, that'll do it. That'll do it 10 times more than, a marketing campaign. So definitely number one, connect your small businesses. Definitely number two, stop marketing, stop selling, help them. And I think number three, then talk to them. I mean, stop buying focus groups, stop spending money with a bunch of other people like you to figure out what small businesses need. If you want to run a focus group, I'll give you 100 small businesses, give them each $500 and they'll tell you what they need. I mean, talk to these people. These are incredibly smart, tenacious, experienced people who can tell you exactly what they need. And so wouldn't it be amazing if all of us just talked to them and asked them what they need as part of our own strategy? So, I would love for anyone who is in the B2SMB space to stop thinking about these people as a category and to start thinking of them as this incredible collection of humans who not only need our help, but have a ton to offer. And I am better every time I talk to one of our business owners. I learn something. They're inspirational. They're incredible. It's an honor to work with them.
Those are really three, I'll repeat them because I think they're that important. Connect your customers together, stop selling and marketing, invest basically in the time and energy to actually talk to them. I think I've told you the story before that in our very first B2SMB conference, I kicked it off by asking an audience of 350 people, all of whom ostensibly are business to small business professionals, how many of you have actually spoken to a small business directly in the last month? And only 3 hands went up in the audience.
I believe it.
I worry that's the same condition right now, is that we're back to sitting around conference tables and intellectually guessing what small businesses need and what based frankly more on anything on what we think we can do.
Totally.
Really asking, what do you need? And then figuring out, can we solve that problem? If we can't, we don't try. We don't try to solve the problem. We're a bank. We're not going to try and fix the marketing that is inside of a small business with new tech. Or, we're a lender. We're not going to try and deconstruct what good SEO looks like now. And I see this content coming out and I just go, why are you writing that?
I know. And what you just said is so important, Dave, because I think this is my personal opinion only, but I work with a lot of corporate partners and government partners and economic development partners. And there was this little moment in probably like May and June probably, where I thought, oh, wait, there might be some interesting stuff that comes out of this. Like there might be some actual innovation. There might be people that throw old rule books away that are quite frankly they should have been thrown away 10 years ago, but now we're actually going to do it. And we're going to do this differently. We're going to market differently. We're going to connect differently. We're going to deliver differently. We're going to do it differently. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen in sort of July, August, September is a creep back to Okay, well, let's just go back to what we used to do. And in fact, let's go back to what we used to do, but even with a higher risk, like worry, or I guess a lower risk threshold, less budget and less sort of innovation. It's really weird what's happening. It doesn't make sense to me because there's so much opportunity to do things so differently right now. And I see by and large organizations going the opposite direction than I think we need to. We're shrinking into low risk, low budget protection mode, as opposed to small businesses on fire. Like, let's get our hoses out and let's see what we can figure out to get this fire out.
Right.
So yeah, I worry that we're definitely as an industry going the wrong way if we're going to really help small businesses in a meaningful way.
So I'm not in that segment that thinks you're crazy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What can members of our audience do to help you? What are the things that what are the top 2-3 things that you would say, hey, here's how you can join me in not being crazy about this approach? What can they do?
Number one, if you have any interest in sort of using SLAP for your small businesses, because and this is me just being very honest and being a little bit self-serving, because we made the pay what you can commitment and our revenue's gone down so much, we're sort of an economies of scale business. So number one, the more businesses that use it, it's like a life insurance policy, right? The more that we can spread around and the more it'll be okay. But also too, the more businesses that are using it, the more community there is, the more connections there are, the more small businesses that we can support. So, if you're a bigger company out there and you are thinking about running a small business coaching program or a small business support program, we've spent 6 years and millions of dollars building this technology-enabled, data-driven behavior change program for small businesses. It's hard to do it. Don't try to recreate it. Let's talk. Let's do it together. We're better together. I really believe that. So that's number one. Number two, I am looking for any and every way to support small businesses right now. So if you have a focus group you want to run, call me. I will get a bunch of businesses. I will take none of the money and you can pay them. If you have a budget that you want to spend and you need vendors, call me. I will match you to small businesses and you can give them the money. Call me if you are looking for small businesses. I don't want any of it. I'm not looking for anything out of it, but let's drive business with the small businesses. And then the third thing is we're asking corporations to spend $10,000 to do a large merch order, give all of their staff, thank you small business merchandise with their own logo on it. Mm-hmm. And then we're taking 100% of the profits from that and giving those out as cash thank you prizes and cash gifts to small businesses. Jump in to thank you small business, become a partner and buy from small business, be engaged in some of these bigger campaigns where the money's all going to the business owners and it's meant to shift behavior to get, money into the hands of small businesses.
So those will be our takeaways, I hope. And those of you who are marketers who are listening to this, take a look at your budget. Take a look at what you're spending on stuff that right now is wasteful, is really not effective. And notwithstanding, it mirrors maybe what you did last year or some percentage of what you did last year, so you could satisfy your CEO or your CFO and really think about what dollars will be most productive, most helpful for my customers, for crying out loud. These are not like an abstract other that we are trying to assist. These are our bloody customers in the millions.
We're real humans. And by the way, if you've got a healthy balance sheet, that was on the backs of these small businesses.
Exactly. If you have the wherewithal to survive, you can thank your small business customers.
That's right.
for that capability. Great stuff. This has been absolutely terrific. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I know our audience will as well. I think, you should get every opportunity to evangelize the respect that you bring to small businesses and what you're trying to do to help them. So I'm happy to be part of one small piece of the rock.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me and entertaining all my soapbox moments.
Right. You're not crazy. Not crazy. Thanks very much, Carissa.
Thanks.
Take care.